The cruiser's lights flashed against my rearview mirror, painting the interior of my car in alternating blue and red. My heart hammered against my ribs as I guided my sedan to the shoulder of Oakwood Drive, just 3 blocks from the hospital. I checked my watch, 12:17 p.m. My afternoon round started at 1 o'clock. What the hell? I muttered, mentally retracing the last few minutes of driving. No speeding. Full stop at the intersection. Turn signal used. Registration up to date. I adjusted. My white jacket, not my medical coat, just a light blazer I'd thrown on after changing out of scrubs for my lunch break, and took a deep breath. The officer approached slowly, one hand resting near his holster. Standard procedure, I reminded myself. Still, the gesture made my mouth go dry. License and registration, he said, not a question but a command. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. I nodded, keeping my movements deliberate. Officer, may I ask why I've been pulled over? He ignored the question, sunglasses hiding his eyes as he watched me reach for the glove compartment. Keep your hands where I can see them and tell me what you're reaching for first. My registration is in the glove compartment. My wallet with. My license is in my back pocket. He nodded curtly. I retrieved the documents with measured movements, the way my father had taught me years ago. The way most black men in America learn to move around law enforcement, like you're handling live explosives. Dr. Marcus Washington, he read from my license, his tone shifting subtly. A hint of surprise, perhaps disbelief. He looked from the license to my face, taking in my braided hair, which I kept neatly maintained despite the hospital administration's thinly veiled suggestions about professional appearance. That's right, I said evenly. And what kind of doctor would that be? Something in his voice made the question sound like an accusation. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon at Mercy General. I pointed toward the hospital, visible a few blocks down. I'm due back for afternoon procedures in less than an hour. He handed back my license but kept the registration. You know why I pulled you over today, Dr. Washington? The way he emphasized my title made my jaw clench. No, sir, I don't. Your vehicle matches the description of one involved in a reported disturbance earlier today. I frowned. What disturbance? I've been in surgery since 6 a.m. I just left the hospital 20 minutes ago to grab lunch. The officer, Matthews, according to his nameplate, studied me for a long moment. Step out of the vehicle, please. My stomach dropped. Officer Matthews, I've done nothing wrong. I have patients waiting. Sir, I need you to exit the vehicle now. His hand moved back to his holster point. 13 years of medical training, a fellowship at Johns Hopkins, and 3 published papers in the Journal of Thoracic Surgery. Yet here I was, heart racing like I was the criminal. I opened the door slowly and stepped out, the midday sun beating down on us both. Turn around, hands on the vehicle. This is unnecessary, I said, but complied. You can call the hospital. Dr. Levin is chief of surgery. He'll confirm I've been there all morning. Matthews ignored me, running his hands along my arms, sides, and legs in a pat down. The indignity burned, but I kept my face neutral. A passing car slowed, the driver watching the scene unfold before continuing on. What kind of car were you looking for, officer? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Black sedan, tinted windows. I almost laughed. There must be thousands of cars matching that description in this city. The report mentioned distinctive rims, he added, glancing at my factory standard wheels. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. Just then, his radio crackled. I couldn't make out the words, but Matthews stepped away to respond. I remained against my car, the metal hot under my palms, watching as he spoke into his shoulder mic and frowned. When he returned, his demeanor had shifted slightly. Wait here, he instructed, returning to his patrol car. Through his windshield, I could see him typing on his computer. My mind raced through the potential outcomes of this encounter. I'd heard too many stories, seen too many headlines. Every second that passed amplified my awareness of how situations like this could spiral irreversibly. 5 excruciating minutes later, Matthews emerged from his cruiser. As he approached, I noticed something had changed, a stiffness in his posture. Perhaps embarrassment. Sir, it appears there's been a misunderstanding. I said nothing, waiting. The vehicle in question has been located elsewhere. He handed back my registration. You're free to go. The dismissal in his voice ignited something in me. 3 blocks. From the hospital where I'd spent the morning saving lives, I'd been treated like a suspect based on nothing but a vague description and, I suspected, the color of my skin. "Officer Matthews," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. "I'd like your badge number and the name of your supervising officer." His expression hardened. "I've already said you're free to go, and I'm requesting information I'm legally entitled to." I reached for my phone. "I'd also like to record the remainder of our interaction." Matthew's hand shot out, gripping my wrist before I could start recording. "That won't be necessary." The touch was firm, authoritative, and captured perfectly by the dashboard camera of the unmarked police vehicle that had just pulled up behind us, driven by a woman whose stern expression and formal attire screamed higher rank. Neither of us had noticed her arrival, but as she stepped out of her vehicle, Officer Matthews' grip on my wrist tightened momentarily before he released it, as if burned. "Officer Matthews," she called out, her voice carrying the weight of command. "What's going on here?" I didn't recognize her, but Matthews clearly did. The color drained from his face as he turned toward his superior, suddenly finding himself caught between a doctor demanding accountability and a commanding officer witnessing an encounter gone wrong. And in that moment, I realized this stop was about to become something neither of us had anticipated. Eliza Monroe stands outside Mercy Memorial Hospital, rain soaking through her jacket as she watches the coroner's team arrive. The discovery of blood on Melissa's scrubs has escalated this from a missing person case to a potential homicide investigation. The hospital's parking lot still shows signs of Katrina's wrath, cracked asphalt with weeds pushing through, a persistent reminder of nature's power. 9 years feels both distant and immediate in New Orleans, where time is measured in before and after the storm. Eliza's phone rings. "Monroe, it's Davis from the lab. You're going to want to hear this." The forensic technician's voice carries an edge of excitement. "The blood on those scrubs? There's more than one type. We've got A+, which could match our missing nurse based on her medical records, but also type O. Two different people." Eliza watches as Collins, the hospital administrator, hovers nervously near the entrance. "Any other trace evidence?" "Working on it." "Oh, and that phone you recovered? Corroded to hell, but we might be able to salvage the SIM card." "No promises. Keep me posted." Eliza ends the call and approaches Collins. "I need access to all maintenance records for this wing, particularly any repairs or modifications made immediately after Katrina." Collins blinks rapidly. "Detective, those records may not exist. We had contractors from all over the country here during recovery. It was chaos. Find what you can." She hands him her card. "And I want to talk to anyone who worked closely with Melissa Gaines." There's one person," Collins says reluctantly. "Nancy Winters, head nurse in emergency back then, now runs our ICU. She's on shift today." The ICU exists in stark contrast to the abandoned wing, pristine, modern, efficient. Nancy Winters moves between patients with practiced precision, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and posture that suggests military background. When Eliza introduces herself, Nancy's professional demeanor doesn't crack, but her eyes, sharp, blue behind stylish glasses, flicker with recognition at Melissa's name. "Let's talk in my office," Nancy says, leading Eliza to a small room overlooking the hospital gardens. "You worked with Melissa Gaines," Eliza begins, watching Nancy's face carefully. "I did. Brilliant nurse. Compassionate." Nancy's expression softens momentarily. She had that rare quality, clinical excellence without losing humanity. "Tell me about the evacuation during Katrina." Nancy's hands tighten almost imperceptibly on her desk. "Pure hell. We had critical patients who couldn't be moved, backup generators failing, floodwaters rising by the hour. Melissa was assigned to our last evacuation team. They were supposed to take remaining ambulatory patients to helicopters on the roof. But she never made it." "No." Nancy pauses. "I always assumed she'd been caught in the flooding of the East Wing. Several sections collapsed without warning." Eliza places the photograph of the ID badge on the desk. Her belongings were found inside a wall that was built after the storm. Nurse Winters. That suggests someone put them there. For the first time, Nancy's composure cracks. That's not possible. The evidence suggests otherwise." Eliza leans forward. "Who was Dee?" "Excuse me." Her necklace had an inscription from someone called Dee. truth always rises. Nancy's breathing changes subtly. That would be Dr. Daniel Carter. He is, our chief of emergency medicine. He and Melissa were close. Romantically involved. It wasn't my business to ask. Nancy's tone turns defensive. But they certainly spent time together outside the hospital. Is Dr. Carter still at Mercy Memorial? Yes. He's attending a conference in Atlanta this week. Nancy hesitates before adding. Melissa's disappearance hit him hard. He led several search parties himself after the waters receded. Eliza makes a note to contact Carter immediately. Was there anyone who had conflicts with Melissa? Professional disagreements? Personal issues? Nancy's eyes drift to the window. Melissa was conscientious, sometimes to a fault, meaning she reported discrepancies, missing medications, altered patient records. The month before Katrina, she filed a formal complaint. Against whom? Nancy doesn't answer immediately. I should check on my patients. Nancy, Eliza says firmly. 9 years is a long time to keep secrets. It wasn't my secret to tell. Nancy sighs. The complaint was against Dr. James Whitaker, our pharmacy director. Nothing came of it. Katrina hit before any investigation could happen. What kind of discrepancies did she report? Opioids. Schedule 2 narcotics disappearing at unusual rates. Melissa noticed patterns. Certain surgeries where the medication counts never added up. Eliza feels the case shifting beneath her, revealing deeper currents. Is Dr. Whitaker still at the hospital? No. Nancy's voice drops. He relocated to Houston after Katrina. But she stops abruptly. But what? He was here during the storm. He volunteered to stay behind with the evacuation team. As Eliza leaves the ICU, her phone buzzes with a message from her partner, Detective Ray Martinez. Death certificate for Melissa Gaines filed November 2005. Cause: presumed drowning during Hurricane Katrina. Never found a body. Outside, the rain has intensified, water pooling in the parking lot. Eliza sits in her car, piecing together a timeline. A nurse reports missing narcotics. A hurricane strikes. The nurse disappears. Her bloody clothing ends up sealed inside a wall. Her phone rings. Again, the lab. Detective, we got partial prints from the necklace clasp. They don't match Melissa Gaines. Whose are they? Still running them. But we also analyzed the wall material. It was definitely constructed post-Katrina, roughly 3 to 4 days after. The storm hit, according to the compound dating. Eliza stares at the hospital through the rain-streaked windshield. Someone built that wall when the hospital was nearly empty. There's more. The lab tech continues. We found trace amounts of fentanyl on the scrubs. Concentrated amounts, higher than normal medical use. The pieces begin to align in Eliza's mind. Missing narcotics. A conscientious nurse filing reports. A convenient hurricane providing covered AS. She starts her car. Eliza notices a figure watching her from a second-floor window of the hospital, an older man she doesn't recognize. When their eyes meet, he steps back from view, disappearing into the shadows of the building. On her dashboard, her phone lights up with an incoming call. The screen reads, Dr. Daniel Carter. Eliza answers the call on the second ring. Detective Monroe, this is Dr. Daniel Carter. His voice sounds measured, professional, yet underlined with tension. I understand you're investigating Melissa Gaines's disappearance. Rain drums against the roof of Eliza's car as she watches the hospital windows, wondering which shadowy figure had been observing her. That's correct, Dr. Carter. I was planning to contact you. Nancy Winters called me. A pause. I'm cutting my conference short. I'll be back in New Orleans tomorrow morning. I'd like to help however I can. I appreciate that. Eliza keeps her tone neutral despite the surge of interest. In the meantime, I understand you were close with Melissa. The silence stretches before Carter responds. Yes, we were involved romantically, though we kept it private due to hospital policy. The necklace with the inscription, it was from you. I gave it to her 3 months before Katrina. His voice softens. She'd been dealing with difficulties at work. The inscription was a reminder. What kind of difficulties, doctor? Another. Pause. I'd prefer to discuss this in person, detective. Some matters are sensitive, even after all these years. 9 years is a long time to keep secrets, especially when those secrets might relate to a potential homicide. Homicide. Carter's voice sharpens. What evidence? Blood on her scrubs, Dr. Carter. hidden inside a wall constructed days after the hurricane. Not exactly consistent with an accidental drowning. The doctor's breathing becomes audible. I'll be at your office first thing tomorrow. There's more to this than you know. After hanging up, Eliza sits watching the hospital for several minutes. Something about the timing of Carter's call feels orchestrated, as if Nancy's notification served as a warning rather than a courtesy. Driving back to the precinct through flooded streets, Eliza's mind cycles through the emerging patterns. A. Hospital with missing narcotics. A whistleblower nurse. A convenient natural disaster. And now, 9 years later, walls literally speaking to her desk, Eliza pins photos of the evidence to her caseboard. Her captain approaches, coffee in hand. Making progress. Captain Benson asks. The timeline's starting to take shape. Eliza taps Melissa's ID photo. She filed complaints about missing narcotics just before Katrina hit. The pharmacy director she accused was part of the skeleton crew that stayed during evacuation. And now her bloody clothes turn up in a wall. Benson frowns. Media is going to be all over this. Nurse murdered during Katrina, body hidden in the hospital. It'll reopen a lot of wounds in this city. If that's what happened. Eliza steps back, examining the board. But something doesn't fit. Why keep her ID and personal items? If someone wanted her to disappear completely, why not dispose of everything? Killers make mistakes, especially in the chaos of a hurricane. Eliza shakes her head. This wasn't a mistake. That wall was built deliberately, days after the storm. Someone wanted those items preserved, not destroyed. Her computer pings with an email alert. Lab results on the blood samples, she murmurs. Opening the report. The typo blood on Melissa's scrubs shows degraded traces of diazepam and midazolam. Sedatives, Benson notes. Common in hospitals. And useful if you're trying to subdue someone. Eliza returns to her desk and begins. Searching databases. I need to find Dr. James Whitaker. An hour of research reveals that Whitaker established a successful pain management clinic in Houston after leaving New Orleans. His professional biography mentions his heroic service during Hurricane Katrina. No disciplinary actions or investigations appear on his record. Eliza digs deeper. Her phone rings. An unknown number. Detective Monroe. You need to stop. The voice is disguised, electronically altered to a mechanical monotone. Some walls were built for a reason. Eliza's training kicks in. Who is this? Melissa Gaines was where she shouldn't have been. Others will suffer if you continue. The line goes dead. Eliza immediately calls tech services to trace the call, but she already suspects it will lead nowhere. She adds threatening call to her caseboard, then notices an email from hospital administration. Personnel records for staff present during Katrina. Scanning the evacuation logs. One entry catches her attention. Richard Collins, administrative. Assistant, East Wing. The same Richard Collins who now serves as hospital administrator and who seems so concerned about negative publicity. Night has fallen by the time Eliza leaves the precinct. The rain has stopped, but water still pools. On streets and sidewalks, reflecting the city lights like mirrors. She decides to drive past Mercy Memorial one more time. The hospital's main buildings glow with activity, but the East Wing, where Melissa's belongings were found, stands dark except for security lights. As Eliza drives slowly past, she notices a maintenance van parked near a side entrance. Acting on instinct, she pulls over and approaches on foot. The van's doors are closed, but through the windows, she can see work equipment and what appears to be stacks of drywall and construction materials that a noise from the building draws her attention. The side door opens, and two men emerge carrying garbage bags. They load them into the van quickly, their movements suggesting urgency rather than routine disposal. Eliza steps into the shadows as one man returns to the building. The other remains by the van, lighting a cigarette. In the brief flare of the lighter, she recognizes him, the same older man who had been watching her from the window earlier. Her phone vibrates with a text message from the lab. Prints from necklace match hospital database. Richard Collins. Eliza looks up from her phone to find the smoking man staring directly at her, his cigarette a glowing point in the darkness. He doesn't run or call out. He simply watches her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Behind him, the hospital's east wing looms like a mausoleum, its darkened windows reflecting nothing, its walls keeping secrets that have waited 9 years to be discovered. The man drops his cigarette, crushing it under his boot. Then he smiles, a small, knowing curve of the lips, before turning to walk unhurriedly back toward the building. Eliza reaches for her sidearm, instinct overriding caution. NOPD. Stop. Right there. The man pauses, shoulders tensing, but doesn't turn around. Hands where I can see them, Eliza commands, advancing carefully that he raises his hands slowly, then turns. In the security lights, his features become clearer, mid-60s. Deeply lined face, the calm demeanor of someone who's survived worse confrontations than this. Detective Monroe, he says, his voice carrying a slight Cajun lilt. I wondered when you'd come back. Who are you? Vincent Thibodeau, head of maintenance. He gestures toward the building. 27 years at Mercy Memorial. What are you doing here at this hour? What's in the bags? Vincent's weathered face remains impassive, clearing debris from the renovation area. Administrator Collins wants everything presentable for the insurance adjusters tomorrow. Pretty late for routine cleanup. Nothing's been routine in that wing since Katrina. His eyes hold Eliza's. You found Melissa's things. It's not a question. Eliza steps closer, keeping her weapon visible. You knew they were there. In the wall. Vincent says nothing, his silence more revealing than denial. I need you to come to the station to make a statement. I can tell you what I know right here. Vincent nods toward the van. But not about what's in those bags. About what happened during the storm. I'm listening. Not here. Vincent glances toward a security camera mounted near the entrance. Some eyes and ears haven't changed since 2005. 20 minutes later, they sit in an all-night diner 10 blocks from the hospital. Vincent cups a mug of coffee in work-roughened hands, the fluorescent lights harsh on his face. I was part of the last evacuation team, he begins. Me, Dr. Whitaker, Melissa, Nancy, for security guards, and Richard Collins, who was just a nervous admin assistant back then. We had 23 patients left to evacuate when the backup generators failed. What time was this? Around 2 a.m., August 30th. Water was already at the first floor windows. We were moving patients to the roof for helicopter evac, but without power, the elevators were useless. We were carrying patients up 5 flights of stairs in the dark. Vincent takes a sip of coffee. Melissa went to get more flashlights from the emergency supply room. That was the last time I saw her. When she didn't return after 15 minutes, I went looking. Found her flashlight on the floor near the pharmacy storage, but no sign of her. Did you report this? A bitter smile crosses Vincent's face. To who? The city was underwater. No functioning police, no communication. Dr. Whitaker said we couldn't risk more lives searching. The building was becoming unstable. We evacuated the remaining patients. 3 days later, when National Guard finally reached us, Melissa was listed as missing, presumed drowned. But you didn't believe that. Vincent stares into his coffee. I've worked in that building longer than anyone. I know every pipe, every crawl space. If Melissa had been caught in the flooding, we would have found her when the waters receded. What do you think happened? I think she saw something she shouldn't have. Vincent lowers his voice. The pharmacy storage was accessed during the power outage. Security locks would have been disabled. You're suggesting someone used the hurricane as cover to steal drugs. I'm suggesting someone used the hurricane as cover for a lot of things. Vincent's eyes harden. 3 days after evacuation, I was part of the first maintenance team allowed back in. The East Wing had heavy damage, but not where Melissa disappeared. That section was relatively intact. Until Administrator Collins, still just an assistant then, brought in private contractors. Said they were authorized by the hospital board to secure structurally compromised areas. They put up walls that didn't need to be there. Eliza leans forward. Did you report your suspicions? To the same hospital board that was scrambling to explain missing inventory worth millions? To NOPD, which was barely functioning? Vincent shakes his head. I kept my eyes open and my mouth shut. I have a family. And the threatening call I received today? The cleanup operation tonight. Someone's nervous. Vincent drains his coffee. Collins has been micromanaging the renovation since it began, insisting certain areas be handled by contractors he personally approves. Like the wall where we found Melissa's things. Vincent nods. That wasn't supposed to be demolished yet. Your contractors went off schedule. Eliza studies him. Why tell me this now after 9 years? Because of what they're doing tonight. Vincent meets her gaze. They're not just cleaning debris, detective. They're removing concrete from a section of foundation that's been sealed since right after Katrina. The implication hangs in the air between them. Eliza feels a chill that has nothing to do with the diner's air conditioning. I need to see that foundation. Vincent's face darkens. It'll be gone by morning. Whatever they're removing, they're doing it now. Eliza is already on her feet, calling for backup and a warrant. Vincent follows her outside, the night air thick with humidity. There's something else you should know, he says as Eliza unlocks her car. Dr. Carter wasn't at a conference this week. He's been at the hospital, working night shifts and spending time in the East Wing renovation area. Him and Collins both. You're sure? I've seen them myself. Whatever they're looking for, they're in a hurry to find it before your investigation goes any further. Eliza's phone buzzes with a text from her partner. Warrant approved. Backup en route. Vincent, I need you to stay available for a formal statement. The maintenance man nods. Be careful, detective. That hospital has ghosts that don't want to be found. Eliza drives through deserted streets, rain beginning to fall again as she approaches Mercy Memorial. The maintenance van is gone from its earlier position, but a black SUV with tinted windows now occupies a spot near the administrative entrance that as she parks. Waiting for backup, her headlights illuminate a figure emerging from the East Wing. Richard Collins, his dress shirt darkened with sweat despite the cool night, carrying what appears to be a metal box toward the SUV. Collins freezes in the headlight beams, shielding his eyes. When he recognizes Eliza's car, his expression shifts from surprise to calculation. He clutches the box tighter and turns, running back toward the building. Eliza exits her vehicle, drawing her weapon. NOPD. Stop, Collins. But the administrator disappears through the door, leaving it swinging open, an invitation or a trap. Eliza can't be sure. With backup still minutes away, she faces a critical decision. Wait for support, or pursue Collins while he's still in sight. The open door to the East Wing stands before her, a dark mouth leading into the hospital's past. From somewhere inside comes the distant sound of machinery, the work Vincent warned her about, still in progress. Eliza radios her position to dispatch, then makes her decision. Suspect fleeing into East Wing with potential evidence. I'm in. Pursuit. The abandoned corridor greets her with stale air and emergency lighting that casts long shadows across debris-strewn floors. Water damage has left dark stains spreading across the ceiling like macabre ink blots. Her footsteps echo as she advances, weapon ready. The mechanical sounds grow louder, a rhythmic drilling or digging coming from below. Eliza follows the noise to a stairwell marked basement level, authorized personnel only. The door is propped open with a toolbox. Descending cautiously, she enters a labyrinth of utility corridors. The basement shows even more water damage than the floors above. Katrina's most lasting wounds etched into concrete and metal. The drilling stops abruptly, replaced by hushed voices. Eliza moves closer, keeping to shadows. Around a corner, harsh portable work lights illuminate a scene that confirms Vincent's warning. 3 men in construction gear operate power tools at a section of concrete flooring that has been partially removed. Nearby stands Collins, still clutching his metal box, engaged in tense conversation with another man whose back is to Eliza. The second man's bearing and silver-streaked hair suggest authority. A doctor, perhaps. We need to move faster, Collins hisses. The detective already has the warrant. If we rush, we risk damaging everything. The other man responds, his voice measured but strained. We've waited 9 years. A few more minutes won't matter. Eliza recognizes the voice from her phone call earlier. Dr. Daniel Carter. She steps forward, weapon raised. NOPD. Everyone freeze. The construction workers startle, dropping tools. Collins whirls around, his face contorting with panic. Carter turns more slowly, his expression unreadable. Detective Monroe, Carter says, as if greeting her at a social function rather than a clandestine excavation. I suppose we should have expected this. Step away from the excavation site, Eliza commands. Put the box down, Collins. Collins clutches it tighter. You don't understand, Richard, Carter interrupts sharply. Do as she says. The administrator hesitates, then places the metal box on a nearby utility table. It's older than Eliza expected. A document lockbox with a combination dial, the kind used before digital security became standard. Dr. Carter, you told me you were at a conference in Atlanta. Carter's smile is thin. A necessary misdirection. I needed time. Time for what? Eliza keeps her weapon steady, eyes moving between suspects. What are you digging for? Evidence, Carter says simply. The same thing you're looking for, detective. This is an active crime scene. You're interfering with a police investigation. We're preserving evidence. Collins interjects, finding his voice. Evidence that would have been destroyed by morning if we hadn't acted. Eliza's gaze shifts to the partially excavated floor. The concrete has been removed to reveal what appears to be a hollow space beneath, not part of the original foundation. What's down there? Neither man answers immediately. From outside, the wail of approaching sirens breaks the silence. Your backup has arrived, Carter observes. Before they get here, you should know, I loved Melissa Gaines. Everything I've done since her disappearance has been to uncover the truth. By tampering with a crime scene, by preserving what others have tried to destroy for 9 years. Carter's voice hardens. That hole in the floor? It wasn't on any blueprint. It was created. After Katrina, off the record. The construction workers exchange nervous glances, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. One edges toward the exit. Nobody leaves, Eliza says firmly, then addresses Carter. If you want to help, start by explaining what you know. Carter sighs. Melissa discovered significant discrepancies in the hospital's narcotics inventory. Not just missing medications, deliberate falsification of records to hide organized theft. She suspected multiple staff members were involved, including Dr. Whitaker, the pharmacy director. Carter looks surprised. You've been thorough. Yes, but not just him. Melissa believed the operation extended beyond the hospital, involving distributors, possibly even law enforcement. Collins shifts uncomfortably. We should wait for your lawyers. No more waiting. Carter cuts him off. 9 years is enough. He turns back to Eliza. Melissa gathered evidence, documented everything. The night of the hurricane, she told me she was going to secure her records before evacuation. That was the last time I spoke to her. Heavy footsteps sound on the stairwell as backup officers arrive, led by Detective Martinez. They secure the scene, separating the suspects for questioning. Eliza approaches the excavation site, shining her flashlight into the cavity below. The beam illuminates something that makes her breath catch, what appears to be plastic sheeting wrapped around a large object. Forensics arrives within the hour, documenting the scene before carefully extracting what lies beneath the concrete. A body, wrapped in industrial plastic and sealed with duct tape, remarkably preserved in the airless space. They transfer the remains to a gurney. Eliza notices Martinez examining the metal box Collins had been carrying. Found the combination, he tells her, turning the dial. Collins gave it up easily once we separated him from Carter. The box opens to reveal stacks of documents, USB drives, and a leather-bound journal. On top lies a hospital ID card, not Melissa's, but one belonging to Dr. James Whitaker. Collins claims Carter coerced him into helping. Martinez says quietly. Says Carter's been obsessed with proving a conspiracy since Gaines disappeared. And the body. Medical examiner won't confirm identity yet, but preliminary assessment suggests female, 30s, dead approximately 8 to 9 years. Martinez hesitates. There's something else. Carter is insisting the body isn't Melissa Gaines. Eliza stares at him. What? He says the Real story is much bigger than one missing nurse. Martinez nods toward the documents. According to him, these prove that Melissa uncovered an organized drug diversion scheme involving hospital staff, distributors, and officials. She documented everything: names, dates, quantities, payoffs. If that's true, why hide this evidence? For 9 years? Why not come forward? Carter claims he's been searching for it since Katrina. Says Melissa told him she'd hidden her evidence somewhere secure in the hospital, but he never knew where until recently. Eliza's mind races, piecing together the emerging picture. And Collins says he was a frightened administrative assistant who got pulled into covering up an accident during the evacuation. Claims he didn't know about the body under the floor, just that certain areas needed to be secured quickly after the storm. As forensics continues processing the scene, Eliza returns to the documents, carefully examining the journal. The handwriting is precise, methodical, Notes documenting suspicious medication discrepancies, names, dates. The final entry is dated August 29th, 2005. Meeting with JW tonight. He doesn't know what I've found. If anything happens to me, D knows where to look. Truth always rises. The signature at the bottom reads not Melissa Gaines, but Audrey Wells, DA. The revelation hits Eliza like a physical blow. Audrey Wells, DA. Not a nurse at all, but an undercover federal agent. She turns to Martinez. We need to contact the DEA immediately. The next 12 hours pass in a blur of interagency meetings, evidence processing, and interrogations. By morning, Eliza sits in Captain Benson's office alongside two stern-faced DEA officials who have flown in from Washington. Agent Audrey Wells was inserted into Mercy Memorial 18 months before Hurricane Katrina, explains Assistant Director Garrett, a square-jawed man with military posture. She was investigating a multi-state narcotics diversion network using hospitals as distribution points. And you lost contact during the hurricane, Eliza says. We lost many assets during Katrina. The second agent, Rivera, adds defensively. Communications were down. The city was underwater. By the time we regained operational capacity, Wells had been reported missing, presumed dead. Yet you didn't. Continue investigating her disappearance? Garrett's expression tightens. We had no reason to suspect foul play. Natural disasters create perfect cover for all manner of tragedies. Without evidence suggesting otherwise, you moved on, Eliza. Finishes bluntly. We had other priorities in the aftermath, Rivera counters. The entire Gulf Coast was in chaos. Pharmaceutical storage facilities were compromised across 3 states. The potential for diverted medications entering the black market was unprecedented. Captain Benson leans forward. Yet one of your agents had already identified a major diversion network operating through Mercy Memorial, and when she disappeared during the hurricane, that didn't raise red flags. The DEA officials exchange glances that speak volumes. There were complications, Garrett admits reluctantly. Agent Wells' operation was compartmentalized. Only 3 people at DEA headquarters knew her true identity. 2 of them died when their helicopter crashed during evacuation efforts. And the third, former Assistant Director Lawrence Mason. He retired in 2007. Garrett hesitates. He died of apparent suicide in 2009. The implications hang heavy in the room. Eliza's instincts sharpen. You think your investigation was compromised, that someone at the DEA was involved. We're not prepared to make that assertion, Rivera says stiffly. But we are treating Agent Wells' death as a line-of-duty homicide and assuming her investigation was terminated by subjects she had identified. Which brings us to Dr. Carter and Richard Collins, Benson says. What's their involvement? Eliza consults her notes. Carter claims he discovered Melissa, or rather, Audrey's, true identity just days before Katrina. She apparently trusted him enough to tell him she'd hidden evidence somewhere in the hospital, accessible only to him. And he waited 9 years to find it. Rivera sounds skeptical. According to Carter, he's been searching systematically whenever renovation work allowed access to sealed areas. He says he recruited Collins, who had been coerced into helping cover up Audrey's murder, to assist him, and the body under the floor. Garrett asks. Medical examiner confirms it's female, mid-30s, dead approximately 9 years. Cause of death, 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. Eliza slides a photograph across the table. Not Audrey Wells, but Dr. Sandra Patel, a staff anesthesiologist who was also reported missing during Katrina. Stunned silence fills the room. Benson recovers first. 2 missing medical staff, 1 body, and a cache of evidence suggesting a drug diversion conspiracy. Where does that leave us with Audrey Wells? Still missing, Eliza says. But the journal provides clues. Her last entry mentions a meeting with JW. Almost certainly James Whitaker, the pharmacy director. And that D knows where to look. D being Daniel Carter. What does Carter say about the actual location of Audrey Wells? Rivera asks. He claims he doesn't know. Says she told him to look to the saints for guidance if anything happened to her. He interpreted that as referring to the hospital chapel, which was dedicated to St. Elizabeth. That's where he's been focusing his search. Garrett stands abruptly. We need to take over this investigation immediately. This falls under federal jurisdiction. With all due respect, Eliza counters. NOPD has developed this case from the beginning. We have established relationships with witnesses and suspects. A sudden federal takeover could compromise. This isn't a negotiation, detective. Garrett's tone brooks no argument. Agent Wells was one of ours. The narcotics diversion network she was investigating cross-state lines. This is DEA territory now. Vincent intervenes diplomatically. I suggest a joint task force. Detective Monroe's knowledge of the case is invaluable, and local connections matter, especially since we still don't know the full extent of who might be involved. After tense negotiations, a compromise is reached. Eliza will continue as lead investigator, working alongside DEA agents but maintaining operational control. Their first priority, locating Dr. James Whitaker in Houston. As the meeting concludes, Eliza's phone buzzes with a message from the forensics lab. Prints from the wall cavity match Audrey Wells, Sandra Patel, and Richard Collins. Collins lied about his level of involvement. Outside the precinct, rain continues to fall, a grim reminder of the hurricane that set these events in motion. Eliza finds Dr. Carter waiting in the lobby, haggard from hours of questioning. "They're letting me go?" he asks, surprised. "For now. We'll need you available." Eliza studies him. "You really didn't know she was DEA?" Carter's laugh holds no humor. "I was falling in love with a woman who didn't exist. Melissa Gaines was a fabrication, a cover identity so convincing that everyone believed in her. Yet you've spent 9 years searching for answers. I'm a doctor, detective. I couldn't save her, but I could try to uncover the truth she died for." Carter runs a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "When she told me to look to the saints, I thought she meant the chapel. I've been searching the wrong places." "What changed?" "The ID badge in the wall. That wasn't Melissa's badge. It was a replica. The real Melissa Gaines would never have worn her badge with the photo visible. She always kept it flipped to the information side, saying the photo was terrible." Carter's eyes fill with realization. "She wasn't telling me to look in the chapel. Saints, detective. The New Orleans Saints." Eliza's confusion must show on her face. "The Saints football team," Carter explains urgently. "After Katrina, the Superdome became a shelter for thousands. Melissa, Audrey, volunteered there during the recovery. She was documenting how diverted medications were being distributed through evacuation centers." "You think she hid evidence at the Superdome?" "I think she might have hidden more than evidence there." Carter's voice drops. "I think she might have survived Katrina. The woman in the hospital wall wasn't the only one who disappeared that night." As if on cue, Eliza's phone rings. The caller ID shows Vincent Thibodeau, the maintenance man. "Detective," Vincent says without preamble, "there's something you need to see. I found another wall cavity, this one in the old emergency stairwell. There's a message scratched into the concrete behind it. MW knows." "Superdome Gate, E." Eliza's pulse quickens. "MW. Mason Whitaker," Vincent replies. "A construction company that handled emergency repairs after Katrina. They built the temporary medical facilities at the Superdome." The pieces click into place. With chilling clarity. Mason, like the DEA assistant director. Whitaker, like the pharmacy director. Not a coincidence, but a clue hidden in plain sight. "We need to get to the Superdome," Eliza tells Carter, already moving toward the exit. Now, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome rises from the New Orleans skyline like a monument to resilience. Once a shelter of last resort for thousands during Katrina, now restored to its former glory. As Eliza drives through midday traffic with Carter, beside her and Martinez following in a separate vehicle, she contemplates how buildings, like people, can hold trauma beneath seemingly repaired exteriors. "Gate E would be on the southeast side," Carter says, breaking the silence. "During Katrina, it was one of the main medical triage points. And this Mason Whitaker Construction Company, you never made the connection before?" Carter shakes his head. "I was focused on the hospital. The names meant nothing until now." He stares out at the rain-slicked streets. 9 years, detective. I've been looking in the wrong places for 9 years while the answers were hidden in a name." They park near Gate E, where maintenance crews are preparing for an upcoming event. The Superdome's operations have long since returned to normal. Concerts, football games, conventions. Its history as an evacuation center memorialized but no longer visible. Eliza approaches the gate's supervisor, displaying her badge. "NOPD. We need access to the areas renovated immediately after Hurricane Katrina, particularly any work done by Mason Whitaker Construction. The supervisor, a heavy-set man named Burrell, scratches his head. That's going back some years, detective. Most of that temporary construction was torn out during the 2009 to 2011 renovations. Most, but not all. Well, some of the support structures were incorporated into the redesign, especially around the utility corridors and storage areas. Burrell checks his tablet. Mason Whitaker handled emergency structural reinforcement in sections 113 through 129, primarily below concourse level. We need to see those areas. Burrell leads them through service corridors that descend below the public areas of the stadium. The spaces grow increasingly utilitarian. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, the building's circulatory system hidden from spectators above. This section was completely underwater during Katrina, Burrell explains, unlocking a heavy metal door. When the waters receded, they had to rebuild these support walls almost from scratch. That's where Mason Whitaker came in. The door opens to reveal a long corridor lined with storage rooms. The walls here are newer than the surrounding structure. Differences in concrete color and texture visible even to an untrained eye. These renovation records, Eliza asks, would they show exactly what work was done and when? Sure, but they'd be in the city archives. We just have the digital summary on file. Burrell gestures to a section of wall. This entire area was rebuilt in September 2005, right after the storm. First priority was structural integrity, so the building wouldn't collapse. Carter moves ahead, examining the walls with newfound purpose. The message said MW knows. Superdome Gate, not the gate itself, but something connected to it. Eliza's phone buzzes with a message from the DEA team. Whitaker, not a Houston address. No record of his whereabouts for past 72 hours. Consider armed and dangerous. Martinez joins them, having completed a sweep of the upper levels. Nothing unusual above. What are we looking for exactly? Inconsistencies, Eliza says. Areas that don't match the surrounding construction. Spaces that might have been sealed off or hidden. They split up, systematically examining the corridor and adjoining rooms. 20 minutes into the search, Carter calls out from a storage area filled with folding chairs and tables. Here, this section of wall, the mortar pattern is different. Eliza and Martinez hurry over. Carter points to an area where the concrete blocks show a subtle variation in the spacing of mortar lines. To casual observation, it would appear unremarkable, but once pointed out, the difference becomes obvious. A rectangular section approximately 4 feet wide and 3 feet high where the pattern breaks. It's been patched, Martinez observes. Removed and replaced. Burrell looks confused. That's not in any of our maintenance records. Can we open it? Eliza asks. I'll need authorization. This is a homicide investigation. Martinez interjects, showing his badge. Consider this your authorization. Reluctantly, Burrell calls for maintenance workers with the necessary tools. Within half an hour, they've brought in equipment to carefully remove the section of walled as the concrete blocks come away. They reveal a small chamber, not much larger than a safe deposit box, but deep enough to hold several items. A waterproof case, a cell phone sealed in plastic, and a small digital recorder. Eliza pulls on gloves before removing the objects. Evidence markers, please. The waterproof case contains several USB drives and a handwritten letter in a sealed plastic bag. The envelope is addressed simply, for Daniel Carter, in the event of my death. Carter stares at it, face pale. That's her handwriting. We'll need to process this properly, Eliza says, though her own curiosity burns. Everything goes to the lab first. Back at the precinct, the evidence room buzzes with activity as technicians carefully document and examine each item. The DEA officials hover anxiously, clearly impatient to access the drives, but bound by protocol. The cell phone proves to be a burner, with only one number in its contact list, labeled simply Exit. The digital recorder contains several audio files, the most recent dated August 28, 2005, one day before Katrina made landfall. With proper documentation complete, Eliza, Martinez, the DEA officials, and Dr. Carter gather to listen to the recording. The room falls silent as a woman's voice emerges from the speakers, clear, determined, and unmistakably professional. This is Agent Audrey Wells, DEA number 8547, date August 28, 2005. Hurricane Katrina is approaching New Orleans, and evacuation has been ordered. I'm recording this as insurance. Brief pause, then the voice continues. My investigation into narcotics diversion at Mercy Memorial Hospital has identified key figures in a multi-state network. Primary subjects include Dr. James Whitaker, pharmacy director, Richard Collins, administrative assistant, and her voice wavers slightly here, Assistant Director Lawrence Mason of the DEA Southeast Division. The DEA officials exchange alarmed glances. Mason has been facilitating the diversion of Schedule II narcotics through official DEA channels, manipulating inventory records and disposal documentation. The hospital connection provides legitimacy for what amounts to approximately $30 million in diverted pharmaceuticals annually. Another pause, the sound of papers shuffling. I've documented transactions, meeting locations, and financial records on the enclosed drives. The network extends to evacuation centers and emergency medical facilities, positioned to exploit disaster response situations where oversight is minimal. The recording continues, detailing names, dates, and locations. Then Audrey's voice becomes more urgent. I believe my cover has been compromised. Yesterday, Dr. Whitaker requested I assist with a special inventory of our disaster preparedness supplies. His question suggested he's testing my knowledge and responses. I've informed my handler, but with the hurricane approaching, standard protocols are suspended. Wind can be heard in the background now, growing stronger. If I don't survive, it won't be because of Katrina. Look for Dr. Sandra Patel. She discovered financial irregularities independently and may also be at risk. I've hidden duplicate evidence at the locations listed in the encrypted file named Saints. The password is the date we met, Daniel. The recording ends abruptly, leaving stunned silence in the room. Carter sits motionless, eyes fixed on the recorder. August 15, 2004, he whispers. The day we met. As technicians begin accessing the USB drives, Eliza's phone rings, the lab with preliminary results from the letter. Detective, you need to see this immediately, the lab tech says, voice tight with urgency. The letter isn't just a message, it's a map, and it's dated October 2005. 2 months after Hurricane Katrina. That's impossible, Eliza says. If Wells died during the storm, that's just it, the tech interrupts. According to this letter, she didn't die. She went deeper undercover. After discovering the conspiracy reached into the DEA itself. The letter includes coordinates for a meeting location and the tech hesitates. It's scheduled for tomorrow night. Dawn breaks over New Orleans as Eliza stands in the evidence room, studying a map spread across the table. The coordinates from Audrey Wells' letter mark a location in the bayou, approximately 20 miles south of the city, remote, accessible only by boat, and strategically located near waterways that lead to the Gulf of Mexico. It's a smuggler's route, explains Agent Rivera, who has reluctantly accepted the joint investigation. DEA has monitored that area for drug trafficking for decades. Perfect cover, Martinez notes. Use established channels, but with official protection. The USB drives have yielded a trove of evidence, financial records, surveillance photos, and meticulous documentation of the diversion network's operations. Most damning are recorded conversations between Assistant Director Mason and Dr. Whitaker, discussing how to exploit the hurricane's aftermath. Where does this leave us with Audrey Wells? Eliza asks, addressing the question everyone has avoided. Garrett clears his throat. If this letter is authentic, and our preliminary analysis suggests it is, then Agent Wells survived Katrina and went deep cover to continue her investigation, trusting no one within the agency except her original handler, who conveniently died in a helicopter crash, Martinez adds. And the body under the hospital floor? Dr. Patel. Eliza presses. Collateral damage. Carter says quietly from the corner where he's been silently observing. Sandra was brilliant. Methodical. She would have noticed financial discrepancies in surgical supply invoices. So they eliminated her during the chaos of evacuation, Eliza concludes, and used the same opportunity to force Audrey underground. Garrett approaches the map, studying the meeting location. If Wells is still alive, still deep cover after 9 years, she's been tracking this network alone, without backup or resources. Not entirely alone, Carter counters. She left evidence for me to find. Created a contingency plan that would activate when her identity was discovered, which happened when the contractors found her badge in the wall. Eliza realizes. She anticipated that someday, that wing would be renovated. The discovery was her insurance policy. The tactical planning takes hours. If Audrey Wells is indeed alive and planning to meet someone at the coordinates, they need to approach with extreme caution. The area will be secured, surveillance established, but direct contact avoided until they can assess the situation. What about Whitaker? Martinez asks. He's still in the wind. APB is out, Garrett confirms. Every airport, train station, and bus terminal is being monitored. He can't have gone far. As the others discuss tactical positions, Eliza pulls Carter aside. The letter was addressed to you. What else did it say? Carter's expression is guarded. Personal matters. Explanations, apologies. She trusted you with her life, Doctor. What? His gaze drifts to the map. We weren't just colleagues or romantic interests. We were friends. I saw her, the real her, even before I knew who she really was. He meets Eliza's eyes. She wrote that she recognized something in me from the beginning. Someone who couldn't be bought, who would choose truth over self-preservation. And the meeting tomorrow night? The letter specifically mentioned coordinates and timing. She's been monitoring the investigation from afar. The letter says once her badge was discovered, certain protocols would activate. Carter's voice lowers. She has information about how high this network really goes, beyond the DEA, possibly into other agencies. She needs to know who she can trust before she surfaces. Night falls as the operation takes shape. Surveillance teams establish positions around the Bayou meeting point. Eliza, Martinez, and a select team, including Carter, will approach by boat. Maintaining communication with DEA agents stationed at strategic intervals, the hours crawl by. At the precinct, Eliza reviews the case files one final time when her phone chimes with an alert. Security footage from Mercy Memorial shows Richard Collins entering the administrative wing, despite being under strict instructions to stay away pending charges. Martinez, she calls. We need to get to the hospital. Collins is there. They find the administrator in his office, hurriedly filling a briefcase with documents. When he sees them, resignation rather than surprise crosses his face. I knew you'd come, he says, shoulders slumping. But it's too late now. Too late for what? Eliza asks, blocking the doorway. Collins sinks into his chair. He's found her. Or she's found him. Either way, it's ending tonight, not tomorrow. What are you talking about? Who found whom? Whitaker. He contacted me an hour ago. Said the meeting coordinates had changed. It's happening tonight at the original location. Eliza's blood runs cold. What original location? Where it all started. Where they stored the first shipments before distribution. Collins stares at his hands. The old boathouse behind Mercy Memorial. It connects to the drainage canals. They used it during Katrina to move supplies when the roads were flooded. Martinez is already calling to redirect teams as Eliza confronts Collins. How did Whitaker know about tomorrow's meeting? I don't know. Maybe he's been watching Dr. Carter. Maybe he has sources you haven't identified. Collins looks up, fear evident in his eyes. Or maybe she's been compromised all along. Within 30 minutes, tactical teams surround the decrepit boathouse that sits almost forgotten at the edge of the hospital property. Built decades ago when the canals were still used for transportation, it now stands as a neglected relic, partially hidden by overgrown vegetation. Through thermal imaging, they detect two heat signatures inside, one stationary near the center, another moving nervously near the canal side entrance. We need to move now, Garrett insists. If that's Wells in there, we follow protocol, Eliza counters. No heroics, no rushed entry that could get someone killed. The radio crackles with the surveillance team's update. Male subject visible through east window. Appears armed. Second, subject seated, possibly restrained. Rain begins to fall as tactical positions are finalized. Eliza checks her weapon, adrenaline sharpening her senses. The operation is ready to commence when a commotion erupts at the perimeter. We have a breach, comes the urgent report. Subject approaching from hospital side. To Eliza's horror, she sees Dr. Carter slipping past the security line, moving with determined purpose toward the boathouse. "Carter, stop," she hisses into her radio. "Stand down." But the doctor continues, his tall figure visible in the dim light as he approaches the main door. Without hesitation, he knocks. 3 measured taps. The door opens, and Carter disappears inside. Change of plans. Eliza tells the tactical team. Potential hostage situation. We move on my mark. Inside her earpiece, she can hear audio from the directional microphones now trained on the boathouse. 3 voices become distinct. Whitaker's, tense and angry. Carter's, deliberately calm. And a woman's, measured, authoritative, alive. "You shouldn't have come, Daniel," the woman says. "This wasn't the plan." "Plans change, Audrey," Carter replies. "Just like meeting locations." Whitaker's voice rises. "Enough. Both of you, against the wall. 9 years I've been watching, waiting for the other shoe to drop. 9 years knowing you were out there somewhere, gathering evidence, building your case." "It's over, James," Audrey responds. "The evidence is already in DEA hands. Mason's dead. The network is exposed." "Not all of it," Whitaker counters. "You think Mason was the top? He was middle management at best." Through the microphone, Eliza hears movement, the sound of someone being shoved. The real power, the real money, that reaches into places you can't touch with badges and warrants. Whitaker continues, his voice now threaded with desperation. "They protected me for 9 years. They can make 3 more bodies disappear just as easily." Eliza gives the signal. "Move in. Now." As tactical teams breach the boathouse from multiple points, Eliza and Martinez take the main entrance. The scene inside unfolds in fragments illuminated by tactical lights. Whitaker, wild-eyed, gun raised. Carter standing protectively in front of a woman secured to a chair, and the woman herself, older than her ID photo but unmistakably Audrey. Wells, her eyes reflecting not fear but cold determination. "Drop your weapon," Eliza shouts. "NOPD. It's over." For one suspended moment, Whitaker stands frozen, gun wavering between his hostages and the officers. Then his expression shifts from desperation to calculated resolve. "You're right," he says, oddly calm. "It is over." He turns the gun toward Audrey with deliberate intent. 3 shots ring out in rapid succession. Whitaker crumples to the floor, blood blooming across his chest from 2 precision shots. One from Eliza, one from Martinez. The third bullet, Whitaker's own, has embedded itself in the wooden beam above Audrey's head, his final act thwarted by police intervention. The boathouse erupts into controlled chaos as tactical teams secure the scene. Eliza holsters her weapon and rushes toward Audrey and Carter. The doctor is already working to free the agent from her restraints, his hands steady despite the violence he's just witnessed. "Are you hurt?" Eliza asks, helping Carter remove the duct tape binding Audrey's wrists. "Nothing serious," Audrey responds, her voice stronger than Eliza expected. At 43, her face shows the strain of 9 years in deep cover, but her eyes remain sharp, assessing. "Though I'd have preferred our meeting to follow the original plan." As medical personnel attend to Audrey's minor injuries, Eliza studies the woman whose disappearance launched this investigation. No longer a mystery, but a flesh and blood survivor with a story that defies all expectations. "Agent Wells," Eliza begins formally. "Audrey," she corrects, accepting a bottle of water from Carter with a brief, meaningful glance between them. "I haven't been Agent Wells for a very long time." "Audrey," Eliza acknowledges. "We have 1,000 questions, and I have answers." Audrey takes a sip of water. "But not here. This location may still be compromised." Within an hour, they've established a secure command center at the precinct. Audrey, now examined by medical staff and confirmed to have no serious injuries beyond exhaustion and dehydration, sits at the conference table surrounded by DEA officials and OPD detectives, and Dr. Carter, who refuses to leave her side. "Let's start at the beginning," Garrett suggests. "The night of Hurricane Katrina." Audrey nods, her composure remarkable for someone who has essentially returned from the dead. "I'd been undercover at Mercy Memorial for 18 months, investigating pharmaceutical theft. As the storm hit, I was closing in on the hospital side of the operation, Whitaker and his associates were using the medication dispensing system to divert narcotics, particularly fentanyl and oxycodone. She accepts a cup of coffee from Carter, with a quiet thank you before continuing. During evacuation, I went to secure evidence I'd gathered, documentation stored in a maintenance closet near the pharmacy. That's when I overheard Whitaker and Collins discussing how to use the hurricane as cover for a major shipment. They mentioned their DEA contact, Mason, and I realized the conspiracy reached higher than I'd thought. So you confronted them? Martinez asks. No. I tried to retreat, but Dr. Patel saw me. She'd been suspicious of inventory discrepancies herself and followed me that night, thinking I might be involved. Audrey's expression darkens. Whitaker found us both. There was a struggle. Dr. Patel was shot. I managed to escape into the flooded wing, but they assumed I'd been injured and would drown as the waters rose. But you survived, Eliza prompts. Barely. I made it to a maintenance shaft that led to the roof. By then, I knew I couldn't trust the official evacuation, not if Mason was involved. So I made a choice. Let them believe I'd died, and use that presumption to investigate from the shadows. Carter leans forward. You could have contacted me. I couldn't risk it. Audrey responds, genuine regret in her voice. Anyone I approached could have been compromised or monitored. I had to disappear completely. For 9 years, Garrett sounds incredulous. The network was far larger than anyone realized. Audrey's voice hardens. Pharmaceutical diversion was just the surface. The operation extended to disaster response contracting, insurance fraud, even human trafficking disguised as evacuation services. After Katrina, they expanded to other natural disasters, exploiting the chaos, the reduced oversight, the displaced populations. She extracts a small flash drive from a hidden pocket in her boot. This contains everything: names, dates, offshore accounts. The principals aren't just corrupt officials. They're wealthy, connected people who profit from disasters while appearing to provide relief. Garrett accepts the drive with reverence. And Mason Whitaker Construction? Their laundering operation, named as a sick joke, combining the names of their DEA protector and hospital facilitator. They secured emergency contracts for rebuilding, particularly focused on hospitals and evacuation centers across the Gulf Coast. Perfect positions for both distributing diverted medications and hiding evidence. Including you, Eliza observes. Audrey nods. They sealed Dr. Patel's body in the hospital foundation, assuming any remains found after Katrina would be impossible to identify. They hid my badge and personal items in a different wall as insurance, evidence they could produce if questions ever arose about what happened to Melissa Gaines. But why leave clues that could expose them? Martinez asks. Contingency planning. Collins was the weak link, terrified of discovery, but too valuable to eliminate. They made him the custodian of evidence that could incriminate him, but never them. If the case ever resurfaced, he'd be the fall guy. Audrey glances at Carter. They never expected someone to keep searching for 9 years. As the debriefing continues, Eliza watches the dynamic between Audrey and Carter, the subtle looks, the careful distance they maintain while clearly gravitating toward each other. Two people connected by extraordinary circumstances, finding their way back to a relationship built on a foundation of deception but sustained by something genuine. Around midnight, with formal statements recorded and preliminary charges being prepared against surviving conspirators, Eliza steps outside for air. The rain has stopped, leaving the city streets glistening under streetlights. Carter joins her, looking simultaneously exhausted and energized. Thank you, he says simply, for not dismissing this as just another Katrina tragedy. 9 years. Eliza muses. Did you ever consider giving up the search? Every day. Carter's smile is rueful. But I made a promise, to myself, to her memory, that the truth would rise. Even when I thought she was dead, I believed the truth of what happened deserved to be known. Inside, they can see Audrey through the window, still answering questions from federal agents. Her posture remains straight, her focus unwavering despite hours of debriefing. What happens now? Eliza asks. For her? For you? Witness protection, most likely. The people she's identified, they have resources, connections. Carter's gaze remains fixed on Audrey. As for me, I go where I'm needed. The implication hangs in the air between them. Before Eliza can respond, Her phone buzzes with a message from forensics. Additional DNA analysis confirms blood from. Hospital wall matches James Whitaker. He was injured during the original confrontation. A final piece of the puzzle clicks into place. Whitaker's blood on Melissa's scrubs, evidence of the struggle that left one woman dead and another presumed. So, dawn approaches as the immediate investigative frenzy settles into methodical process. Arrest warrants are being prepared for 12 individuals across 4 states. Evidence recovery teams are heading to locations identified in Audrey's files. The machinery of justice, delayed for 9 years, begins to move with purpose in a quiet moment between official statements. Eliza finds Audrey alone in the break room, staring into a cup of untouched coffee. Does it feel real yet? Eliza asks, being Audrey Wells again instead of a ghost. I'm not sure I remember how to be Audrey Wells. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Melissa Gaines died in that hospital. The woman who emerged, she's someone else entirely. Someone who survived, who never stopped fighting for justice. Audrey looks up, truly seeing Eliza for the first time. You understand, don't you? How cases get under your skin, become part of you. I do. Eliza sits across from her. But this one's closing now. You can rest. Can I? Audrey's question seems directed at herself more than Eliza. 9 years of hiding, watching, gathering evidence. 9 years of looking over my shoulder, trusting no one. She glances toward the conference room where Carter waits. Almost no one. He never gave up on you. I know. Audrey's composure cracks slightly, revealing the human cost of her mission. I left him without explanation, let him believe I might be dead, and still he searched. That kind of loyalty. She trails off, unable to complete the thought. Outside the window, New Orleans awakens to a new day, unaware that a 9-year mystery has been solved in its midst. Somewhere in the city, hospital walls no longer guard their secrets. Evidence long buried has finally risen to the surface, like truth finding its way through floodwaters. What will you tell him? Eliza asks quietly. Audrey's gaze returns to the conference room, to the man who kept faith when everyone else had moved on. The truth, she says simply. It's all I have left to give. 6 months later, December 2014, snow falls gently outside the coffee shop window. An unusual sight in New Orleans that transforms the French Quarter into something from a fairy tale. Eliza nurses her latte, watching holiday shoppers hurry past with bright packages and brighter smiles. The case that consumed her summer has been officially closed for 3 months now, but its echoes still reverberate through her life. The small bell above the door chimes as Dr. Daniel Carter enters, brushing snowflakes from his coat. He spots Eliza and approaches with a warm smile that has lost its haunted edge. Detective Monroe, he greets her, taking the seat across from her. Thank you for meeting me. Daniel, she responds, having moved to first names during the weeks of testimony and preparation that followed Audrey's reappearance. How's Boston treating you? Cold. Very cold. He laughs. But Massachusetts General is an excellent hospital, and the fresh start has been necessary. A waitress brings Carter's pre-ordered coffee, giving Eliza a moment to study him. The man before her looks younger somehow, unburdened by the weight of a 9-year search. I read about the sentencing, Carter says, his expression turning serious. 15 years for Collins. Seems light considering his role. His cooperation was substantial. Without him, we might never have identified the higher-level operators. Eliza sips her coffee. The real victory was the RICO indictments against the Mason-Whitaker principals. 8 convictions so far, with more pending. And the hospital, new ownership, complete administrative overhaul. They've implemented strict monitoring systems for controlled substances. Eliza smiles wryly. Amazing how a scandal involving buried bodies motivates institutional reform. Carter nods, turning his cup slowly between his hands. That's partly why I'm here. I've been offered the position of Chief Medical Officer at Mercy Memorial under the new administration. Are you considering it? Surprisingly, yes. His gaze drifts to the window, to the transformed city outside. There's something poetic about returning to rebuild what was broken. The hospital needs good people who understand its history. Eliza weighs her next question carefully. And Audrey? How is she? Carter's expression softens. Adjusting. The Justice Department has been surprisingly accommodating about her situation. New identity, of course, but they've allowed certain exceptions to standard protocols. Meaning, he reaches into his coat pocket and removes a small envelope, sliding it across the table. Inside, Eliza finds a simple photograph: Carter and Audrey standing on what appears to be a Massachusetts beach, bundled against the cold but smiling genuinely. At the camera, they look like any ordinary couple enjoying a weekend outing. No trace of the extraordinary circumstances that brought them together, tore them apart, and ultimately reunited them. Martha's Vineyard, last month, Carter explains. Her new position with the FBI's Pharmaceutical Crimes Division keeps her busy, but we make time. FBI. Eliza raises an eyebrow. Not exactly witness protection. She refused to disappear again. Said 9 years in the shadows was enough. Pride colors his voice. The Bureau created a special advisory role. She helps train agents to recognize pharmaceutical diversion schemes. Her experience is unparalleled. And you too. Carter's smile reaches his eyes. Taking it one day at a time. Building something real, based on truth this time. They talk for another hour. About the case. About the 11 additional bodies found at construction sites linked to Mason Whitaker. Across 3 states. About the legislative changes now being implemented for disaster response accountability. When they finally say goodbye, Carter hands Eliza a small package. From both of us, he says. A thank you seems inadequate, but it's what we have to offer. Alone in her car, Eliza unwraps the gift, a silver pendant in the shape of New Orleans fleur-de-lis. Turning it over, she finds an inscription: Truth always rises. A&D. 2 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, Eliza stands in the newly renovated East Wing of Mercy Memorial Hospital. The administrative decision to create a memorial wall honoring staff lost during Hurricane Katrina was met with unanimous approval. She watches as the final portrait is installed. Dr. Sandra Patel, no longer a nameless victim buried beneath concrete, but remembered for her courage and sacrifice. Beside it hangs a plaque commemorating the dedicated medical professionals who stayed to help others during our city's darkest hours. No specific mention of pharmaceutical theft, murder, or corruption. Those elements of the story remain in court documents and case files. For the public space, only acknowledgement of loss and recognition of justice finally served. As Eliza turns to leave, she notices a familiar figure standing at the end of the corridor. Vincent Thibodeau, the maintenance man whose quiet vigilance preserved crucial evidence for 9 years. "Merry Christmas, Detective," he says, approaching with that same unhurried calm she remembers from their first meeting. "Place looks different now, doesn't it?" "Almost unrecognizable," she agrees. "You're still working here? Where else would I go? These walls and I, we understand each other." Vincent gestures toward the memorial. "Besides, someone needs to remember what happened. The whole truth, not just the pretty parts they put on plaques." The truth did rise, in the end. Always does. Vincent nods sagely. Might take 9 years or 90, but secrets don't stay buried forever. Not in this city. Outside, New Orleans sparkles with holiday lights reflected in puddles left by melting snow. The rare winter storm has come and gone, much like Katrina's floodwaters years before, destructive in its moment, but ultimately receding, leaving the resilient city to rebuild and remember. Eliza pauses at her car, looking back at the hospital silhouetted against the evening sky. Its walls no longer hide bodies or secrets. Its renovated corridors no longer echo with unanswered questions. After 9 years, the truth has indeed risen, not as a sudden revelation, but as a patient excavation, one careful layer at a time. She touches the silver pendant at her throat, feeling its weight against her skin. Some cases change you, become part of your own foundation. This one has left its mark on her, just as surely as Katrina left its mark on New Orleans. A reminder that even the most devastating storms eventually pass, leaving behind both destruction and the opportunity to build something stronger in their wake.